Well, welcome back to the Lehocky Eagles postgame show live from Ocean Casino. If you're watching us on the 6abc.com or on the JAKIB YouTube Sports channel, we are as devastated as most fans out there as the Eagles lose 38-35, a field goal, 27-yarder by Harrison Butker to win the game. And how they even got to that point is still mystifying to me. The Eagles had 417 yards of offense in this game and still wound up losing the game. And their defense, which has been really solid all year long, just gave it up in the second half. And with the Chiefs with 4 possessions, scored on all 4 of them, 3 touchdowns to take command of the game, and then the game-winning field goal. I don't really know what to say. In the first half, I was firmly convinced that the Eagles were going to win this game. Philadelphia was going to have another celebration, and all of a sudden the game evaporated. So, fellas, I mean, what can you say?
I can say in a lot of ways, I'm not surprised. We knew Gannon was going to catch up to him sooner or later. You know, the fact that this team racked up historic numbers defensively, 70 sacks, 78 including 2 playoff games, one of the best in turnover ratio. You can't overlook that fact. I don't care who they play on their schedule, but the bottom line is, as Seth alluded to a few moments ago, they racked up those stacks against inferior opponents. Okay? Now, people want to say, well, they went 5-1 against winning teams or whatever the case may be. Well, who did they play? Minnesota? Minnesota was a fraud, right? Minnesota was a fraud. The Giants were basically a team that was a fraud. That's in a rebuilding mode. Okay, the only team that really took them apart was Dallas, and they didn't have Hurts for that game. 49ers lost 2 quarterbacks. Okay, meet the Giants again in the playoffs. Daniel Jones does not have enough talent, nor does Brian Daboll. You came up in this game, the game of the year. You fought your way through 19 games to get to this point to face the marquee quarterback in the game, 2-time MVP, set new records for passing, leading touchdown, leading offense, and that's the kind of performance you went up and put out there as a defense.
Right, the quarterback only threw for 182 yards.
Doesn't make it, but they ran through your vaunted defense. If you would have told me
before the game that they would hold Mahomes to 182 yards, I would say that's a pretty good deal, but they wound up not stopping the run in the second half, and they allowed him to throw 3 touchdowns, and he wriggled out of some situations with scrambles that I still can't believe he got. That 26-yard was a killer.
He did that in the Cincinnati game that set them up for that game-winning field goal. You know, I don't know how bad this guy's ankle hurt, but kudos to that training staff for being able to tape him up, whatever they did to him, whatever kind of medication they gave him to get him back in that game. But they've been doing this all season long, Mike. It's not like Mahomes has been throwing for 300, 400 yards every game. He's had a number of games where he's thrown for under 200 yards, and yet they found a way to be successful. He did it in the playoffs against Jacksonville. He threw for less than 200 yards. They won that game. He did it again against this Eagles team. He didn't need to throw for 300 yards.
21 for 27, and his yards per pass, 6.7. And like Seth said, they didn't really have anybody that dangerous, but they wound up moving the football against a defense that kind of looked confused in the second half. That's what I'm most surprised about. The defense got back on its haunches, and it was like it wasn't the defense that had dictated. And listen, they held Hassan Reddick down in this game. He really was not a factor in this game.
And see, that's another shocker in this game. The worst offensive lineman on Kansas City, Andrew Wiley, controlled one of the best pass rushers in the game.
To the point where they had to flip him to the other side.
They flipped him to the other side. He still couldn't get home, Seth.
Let me tell you something, man. You think that Wiley hadn't heard all week long about the fact that he was the weak link?
Yep.
That Hassan Reddick was going to come in and wreck shop against him?
Yeah.
You don't think that man's got a little bit of pride, rolled up in him? And maybe Hassan Reddick maybe took him a little lightly. You never know, man. In a game of this stature, I should say, you always have, these anomalies that pop up, where guys don't perform well and all of a sudden they play lights out. And guys that normally perform well, they kind of disappear like Casper the Ghost. But listen, man, I'm just so disappointed for, these football players because, the players have to go out there and execute. But when you're put at a disadvantage because of, how you're asked to play, and the Eagles, I think the Eagles offense has got to get to a place, guys, where, we don't get complacent about scoring points. In the National Football League, we were tied with the Chiefs in points scored per game going into, the regular season along with the playoffs. But the one thing about the Chiefs, and they've been like that all season long, and one of the reasons why they were the regular season, team leading offense, is because they never pull their foot off the pedal. The Eagles do it in a myriad of ways. On offense, when they get a lead, they pull back. On defense, when they get a lead, they start to get passive. And against great football teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to keep scoring. The Jalen Hurts fumble was big. That's 7 points that you just gave him, okay? Then, you're driving right before the half. And basically, if you can put 7 points on the board there, now all of a sudden you've got a 14-point lead going in at halftime. What happens? You go down, you stall out, wind up having to kick a field goal. It's just the little small things. The difference between winning and losing is so minuscule in so many ways. I'm just disappointed, man, because I was looking forward to the damn parade, man. I really was.
You're not the whole world, it seemed, thought the Eagles were going to win this game. And I'm talking about even national people. Everybody was picking the Eagles here. And the bottom line is the more experienced team, the team that has been there before, wound up winning this game. I mean, I heard Dan Orlovsky from ESPN say the Eagles are building a dynasty. Now, where do they stand now? Listen, they were in this to the end, but they obviously weren't the better team. The more experienced team won this game. They have a lot of free agents now. What's the picture look like for the Eagles now?
Well, you got to retool the product because first and foremost at the top of the pyramid is how much money is Jalen Hurts going to get, okay? The owner just came out earlier in the last week, and said Jalen Hurts has nothing else to prove in terms of getting his money. So if the contract is going to get him $40-45 million a year, now you're talking about the trickle-down effect because somebody's going to be the odd man out. The Eagles only have, of the 11 starters on defense, only 4 are under contract for 2023 right now, okay? What are you going to do with Miles Sanders?
I don't think they're re-signing Miles Sanders.
I don't either, to be honest. Shane Steichen could be moving on to Indianapolis. Gannon.
I don't think Gannon's getting a job. He's going to be the defensive coordinator next year.
There are a whole lot of people that hope Gannon gets that Arizona job. I'm telling you right now.
I don't think he's going to get that Arizona job.
He might not.
This is not a good look for him to get a job. In fact.
The complexion of this team is going to change. Howie Roseman is one of the best in the business at working a cap to his advantage. They already know who they want to target right away to bring back. I would imagine C.J. Gardner-Johnson is at the top of their list on defense, as is Bradbury. But I don't see them paying Bradbury big money because you already have a corner in the opposite side making big money. No teams really have 2 corners making that kind of money. Somebody has to take a hit.
I don't think he's coming back either because you're going to have to pay C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who deserves to get paid. That dude is a good player, and they can't afford to lose him. Listen, Miles Sanders had 7 carries today for 16 yards. You got to get better output from your marquee running back.
Let me give you guys something to chew on. I said in the pregame that the Eagles have to maintain who they were in terms of how they played offensively, and they deviated. The numbers say they deviated. The running backs had a total of 17 carries between the 3 of them.
Yep.
For 45 yards. Hurts had 15 carries. Now, I realize sometimes those numbers are skewed because they're not all rushing design quarterback runs, okay? But you asked Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 38 times today, and you haven't asked him to throw it 38 times through 2 since I don't know when. You understand what I'm saying? So now you kind of deviated from who you were and what got you here. Because when you had the lead, when you had a 10-point lead, that was the time for you to just put your nose to the grindstone.
Right. Pedal to the metal.
And try to figure out how to get the run game going, even if it only meant that you're going to get to 3 yards on first and second down, and then you're going to have to rely on your quarterback to try to figure out how to convert on third down. But when you look at statistically what they did, I mean, listen, in the first half, Jalen Hurts was 7 for 22, 183 yards, okay? The Eagles ran the ball 22 times for 87 yards. Now, I'm going to do the math in a minute and let you know what those numbers come out to, but I'm telling you right now, they got a little too pass-heavy in the second half, and they got a little too predictable in what they were doing on the offensive side of the ball. The game plan should have been, when you got a lead, okay, we're just going to demoralize you defensively, and they could never get there. And then once Patrick Mahomes got his team and his offense going again, it re-energized and reinvigorated the defense. And they started playing lights out all of a sudden.
Here's what I knew that Kansas City's offense was definitely in the Eagles' defense's head. If you remember the play in the second half, Patrick Mahomes floats one down the sideline to the Juju Smith-Schuster. He's wide open. Now, when you look at the replay, you see Avonte Maddox point, so obviously they're playing zone. Nobody got over. After the play, you see Darius Slay jaw-jacking with Avonte about who's supposed to be where. That's when you know that offense was inside the defense's head.
Well, listen, a lot of times it's not the fact that the offense is in the defense's head. It's the fact that in order to be a great defense, man, you have to communicate. I don't care what anybody says.
Yes.
You can't ever take anything for granted.
Right.
And when you're a good communicating team, 9 times out of 10 what winds up happening is it's an automatic thing.
Right.
It seems to me that the Eagles just got a little discombobulated on defense tonight because there's a couple of times where it seemed like the communication wasn't present, and then what wound up happening is they turned people loose, or they had, coverage issues. It's so important to be on the same page, and it just seemed like to me there were plenty of times tonight that this defense uncharacteristically was not on the same page.
They're not on the same page. But Seth, here's the other thing. They tied the score at 35, okay? And there's 5+ minutes left in this game. This is where your defense this defense that has performed all year has to perform in that kind of a situation. The Chiefs have the ball. You perform, you're going to get the ball back to win the game. And they didn't in that drive. If you want to boil it down to one drive, that was the Mahomes scramble for 26 yards. That was Pacheco converting the 3rd and 1 on a sweep, and then he took it to the 10. They didn't stop them there. That's the defense that has to make a stop in order to win the game and not cut in time, and they didn't do it.
Well, we talked about it. We talked about it in the pregame, D-Gun.
Yeah.
Didn't I talk about, the special teams not having that one play where they puke on their shoes?
Yes.
They did it. They damn sure did it.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
They damn sure did it. And to me, that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Was that 65-yard, punt return.
Yeah, that was huge, but they still tied the score. Is my point. At
Still,
that point, the defense now the defense is in your hands.
It was too easy.
It was too easy, Mike.
My point is too easy.
Oh, no, I get it. What I'm saying is you still, at 35-35, if your defense makes a stop, you can win the game. But they didn't make the stop.
You're right. But that's the point. They didn't make a stop the entire second half. That's the stop. As demoralizing as this loss was, when you look deeper into the numbers, they hit you in the gut even more so because Eagles had 417 yards. KC rallies in the second half, 340, okay? Eagles allowed KC to get in the red zone 5 times. They put 4 touchdowns in the end zone. Eagles 3 of 5. Sayamalo's false start cost them a potential touchdown as well. And then when you look at a definitive time of possession swing, usually the team with the dominant time of possession wins the game. Eagles had the ball 35 minutes, 47 seconds. Kansas City, 24-13, yet Kansas City puts 38 points on the board. That's all you need to know. They put 38 points on the board.
I didn't expect it. That's why I'm so flummoxed there. I did not expect that defense to give it up like they gave it up in the second half, and especially they still had a chance to recover if they make that one stop when the score's 35-35 with 5 minutes left in the game. Good defenses, good teams make that stop and win the game, and they didn't do it. They allowed the other team to do it.
And we haven't even mentioned Quez Watkins dropping that pass that could have put him in another scoring position as well.
You talk about, what the Eagles need, next year and what they got to do. I think they're pretty on the offensive side of the ball.
That's it.
If if Jason Kelsey comes back, even if he doesn't, I think they're set. They're set in every position except for they've got to find a feature running back, because I don't think after Miles' performance today, and I'm not saying it in a negative way, because he had a hell of a year.
Yes.
But in the biggest game of the season, he came up small. He reverted to some of the things that made everybody scratch their head about him.
Yes.
When instead of having vision, a lot of times he was bouncing balls outside. They got to find a third wide receiver. And I know we got Lane, so I'll get to the defensive side.
Yeah, we'll talk more